They told you your generation is selfish, too obsessed with careers, too glued to your phones, too spoiled to want a family. But here is the number they leave out. Americans still say the ideal family is 2.7 children. They are actually having 1.6. That gap, more than one whole child per woman, is not a change of heart. It is a price tag. Because somewhere in the last 20 years, a baby quietly became a $300,000 product. Infant daycare now costs more than a state college in 45 states, and the hospital bills you just to be born. This isn't a values crisis. This is an entire generation that sat down, did the math, and read the invoice out loud. So let me show you who wrote that price tag and who inherits the bill when a country stops having kids. Turn on any news panel and you'll hear the same eulogy for the American family. Young people are selfish. They'd rather have brunch than babies. They love their dogs more than kids. It's a morality story, and it's told with a lot of confidence and almost no numbers. So let's bring the numbers. Here is where we actually are. In 2023, the United States total fertility rate fell to 1.62 births per woman, according to the Centers for Disease Control's final natality data. The provisional figure for 2024 is even lower, around 1.61. There were about 3.6 million births, 3,591,000, and that is roughly 17% below the last peak back in 2007. This is not a pandemic blip. This is a 17-year slide. And I want you to feel how far below the alarm line that is. To simply replace the population for one generation to hand off to the next without immigration, you need about 2.1 children per woman. That's the Congressional Budget Office's replacement number. We are nowhere near it. At the height of the baby boom in 1957, American women averaged 3.77 children. Even the famous fertility panic of the 1970s, the one that produced doomsday books and magazine covers, bottomed out at 1.74 in 1976. Sit with that. Today's birth rate has punched straight through the floor that terrified everybody 50 years ago.
Now, here's where I have to be honest with you, because the crowd gets this next part wrong in both directions. When Pew Research surveyed adults who say they're unlikely to ever have kids, the number one reason, at 57%, was simply, I just don't want to. And you know what? That is a completely legitimate answer. A real and growing share of people are choosing a life without children on purpose, and that is their right, not a national emergency. I'm not here to guilt anyone into a nursery. If the whole story were some people don't want kids, we could all go home. But that is not the whole story, because the same research shows the reasons stacking up right behind that one. In that Pew survey, 38% pointed to the state of the world. 36% said flatly they can't afford to raise a child. 24% said they haven't found the right partner. This is not a portrait of a careless generation. This is a portrait of people running a cost-benefit analysis. And the real tell, the number that should end the selfish narrative for good, is the gap between what Americans want and what they get. Gallup still finds that the ideal family size, in the minds of actual Americans, is 2.7 children. 2.7 is what they say they'd choose in a perfect world. 1.62 is what's showing up. That difference, more than one full child per woman, is the sound of people wanting something they've decided they cannot afford. Go back to that 2018 New York Times survey, the one that asked people who were having fewer kids than they wanted why. 64% said childcare is too expensive. 44% said they simply couldn't afford more children. Nobody in that survey said, "I forgot how to love."
So let me reframe this whole thing for you, because it changes everything. This is the most educated generation in American history. It is the most contraception-literate generation, the most deliberate generation about if and when. These are not people accidentally not having children. These are people making a considered financial decision and then getting lectured about their values by the same institutions that sent them the bill. Think about what "did the math" actually means here. It means a young couple sitting at a kitchen table with a spreadsheet open. It means looking at rent, at student loans, at what a single daycare slot costs, at what happens to one paycheck if one of them steps back from work, and concluding rationally, "not yet." And "not yet," repeated long enough, quietly becomes "no." That's not weakness of character. That's arithmetic doing exactly what arithmetic does. So far, Americans still want roughly 2.7 kids and are having 1.62, and the gap isn't a change of heart, it's a price tag. Which raises the only question that matters next. If people are being priced out of the family they say they want, then what exactly does that family cost? Where did a child get so expensive that a generation started saying no to something it actively wants? Let's open the invoice line by line, and I promise you some of these numbers are going to make you angry.
Let's open the invoice, and I want to be scrupulously fair with the headline number, because it gets thrown around carelessly, and I don't want you quoting it wrong in the comments. The Brookings Institution estimates that raising one child born in 2015 to the age of 17 costs about $310,605. Now here's the honest fine print. That figure takes the government's older Department of Agriculture baseline and adjusts it forward, assuming about 4% annual inflation. It is a middle-income married couple estimate, and critically, it does not include college. It also does not include the mother's lost wages, which we'll get to. So when a pundit tells you a kid costs $300,000 minimum, understand that the real economic number is not smaller than that. It's bigger. $310,000 is the floor, and the floor stops at high school. Now let me break that invoice into the lines that actually break people, because $300,000 over 18 years is abstract. The bills that end pregnancies that never happen are the ones that hit all at once. Line 1. Childcare. According to Childcare Aware of America, the average price of center-based infant care in this country is about $11,582 a year. In places like Washington, D.C. and Massachusetts, its sales pass $24,000. Now hold that next to a fact that should not be physically possible. In 45 states plus D.C., infant daycare costs more than in-state tuition at a public college. Read that again. Before your child can read, before they can walk, you are paying more than you'll later pay to send them to a state university. We have built an economy where the most expensive education an American ever buys is the one for a person in diapers.
Just getting the baby here, even with employer insurance, having a baby is a billed event. The Peterson KFF Health System Tracker puts the average total cost of pregnancy, childbirth, and postpartum care at $18,865, with about $2,854 coming straight out of the parents' pockets even after insurance pays its share. So before the child has spent one night at home, the American system has already run their card. Line 3 is the one nobody puts on the spreadsheet, and it's the biggest. Economists call it the child penalty. In a major study through the National Bureau of Economic Research, Henrik Kleven and his colleagues measured what happens to a mother's income after her first child. The answer is brutal. Her earnings drop sharply and, on average, never fully recover, a long-run penalty on the order of 31%, driven by cut hours and stalled careers. And the United States ranks poorly on this compared to other rich nations. So the true price of a child isn't just the money you spend, it's the money one parent stops earning for years, sometimes permanently. Now put those three lines together and you understand the trap, because they interlock. Before you can even get to daycare, most people believe they need the house, the spare bedroom, the yard, the stability. And the house got repriced first. The share of first-time buyers in the market just fell to 24%, a record low, according to the National Association of Realtors. So you need a home you can't buy to make room for a child you can't insure, so you can pay for care that costs more than college, while one of your salaries quietly disappears. That is not a lifestyle choice. That is a gauntlet.
And I want to give this a face, because the numbers can go numb. The Associated Press reported on a mother named Chelsea Slemp, who fully intended to go back to work after her son was born. She priced out daycare. The cheapest option was $1,600 a month. The best was $2,000. That is her entire paycheck. So she did the only rational thing the math allowed. She left her career. She wasn't lazy, she wasn't unambitious. She was told that the privilege of keeping her job would cost more than the job paid. One parent reported that going to work would actually lose the family money. When the system is built so that earning less than your childcare bill is the norm, staying home stops being a value and becomes a verdict. This is the part the morality lecture always skips. Young people are not failing to launch out of weakness. They are looking at a stack of bills: the house they can't buy, the birth they can't afford, the daycare that eats a salary, the career one of them has to forfeit, and they are making the single most financially responsible decision available to them, which is to wait. And waiting, as we said, becomes not. So far, a child is a $300,000 sticker price before college. Daycare beats tuition in 45 states, and one parent's paycheck is often the hidden down payment. But here's the thing about a sticker price that high. Somebody is on the other side of that transaction. Somebody sets these prices, and somebody collects them. So let's do what this channel always does. Let's follow the money and find out who's actually getting paid when America can't afford to have kids. Every bill has two sides. You've been staring at the side where the money leaves your account. Now let's flip it over and look at where it lands. Because a child is too expensive is not a law of nature. It's a series of transactions, and every one of them is somebody's revenue. Start with the daycare that costs more than college. That price isn't going into a void, it's feeding an industry. The U.S. childcare market is worth roughly $60 billion a year, according to market research from Precedents. Now, most daycare workers themselves are paid poorly, which tells you the money isn't mainly going to them. It's going into real estate, into ratios, into a fundamentally broken model where the thing every young family needs is priced like a luxury good. The point isn't that a villain is laughing in a vault. The point is that your impossible childcare bill is, on someone's spreadsheet, a healthy line of recurring income. Then there's the hospital, collecting its $18,000 charge on the way in. And then, and this is the part that connects to everything this channel has ever told you, there's the debt that parents take on to push their kids across the finish line into the middle class. Look at Parent Plus loans, the federal loans parents borrow for their children's college. The outstanding balance is now about $112 billion, owed by roughly 3.8 million parents, according to the Department of Education's own portfolio data. Think about the full arc of that. The system prices your childhood like a luxury, and then, when it's time to buy the education that supposedly justified all of it, it hands the parents the loan. The invoice for the child follows you into your own retirement.
So that's the micro picture. A child is a stream of payments flowing to childcare, to hospitals, to lenders. But here's where it gets genuinely strange and where the phrase childless economy earns its name. Because the same country that prices kids out of reach has built its entire retirement system on the assumption that you'll keep having them. Let me show you the single most important ratio in American public finance. Social Security works by having today's workers pay for today's retirees. In 1960, there were about 5.1 workers paying in for every one beneficiary drawing out. That's from the Bipartisan Policy Center. 5 to 1. The math was easy. Today, according to the Social Security Administration's own 2024 Trustees Report, that ratio is down to about 2.7 workers per beneficiary, and it is projected to fall to roughly 2.3 by 2040. That is the whole story of the childless economy in 3 numbers, 5 to 2.7 to 2.3. Do you see the trap the country built for itself? Social Security is a promise that assumes a growing population of future workers, future taxpayers, future contributors. But those future taxpayers are exactly the children this economy just finished pricing out. The Congressional Budget Office now projects that by 2040, essentially 100% of U.S. population growth will come from net immigration. The domestic engine, Americans having American kids, is, on the numbers, stalling out. So the same forces that made a baby unaffordable are quietly defunding the retirement of everyone who chose not to have one.
And here's the cruelest mechanical detail, the benefits cliff. The same trap we've documented before, but now aimed at parents. Consider a mother named Andrea Rincon, whose story was reported by Lehigh Valley News and NPR. She described being caught in the exact crossfire, making too much money to qualify for childcare assistance, but not enough to actually pay for childcare. One parent reported earning her way into a dead zone, too rich for help, too poor for daycare, and the only exit the system offered was to stop working for 2 years. Think about what that means at scale. We have engineered a situation where a raise can cost you your childcare, where earning more can leave a family with less, where the responsible move, go to work, earn more, is the one the system fines you for. So follow the money all the way to the end, and here's what you find. The middle-class family isn't failing the economy by not having kids. The family is behaving exactly the way the prices told it to. And the institutions collecting those prices, the childcare industry, the hospitals, the lenders, and yes, a retirement system that needs a next generation it refuses to make affordable, those institutions now get to stand up and warn us about a birth dearth. They built the toll booth. They're shocked no one's driving through. But, and this is where I have to stop myself, because it would be so easy and so cheap to end the chapter right here with a clean villain. So far, a child is a revenue stream on the way up and a funding crisis on the way down. And the same system that priced kids out now panics about the shortage it engineered. That's the follow the money story, and it is real. But it is not the complete story. Because if this were purely about American prices, then countries that fixed those prices should be full of babies. And here's the uncomfortable part, they're not. So before we hang the whole thing on greed, let me show you the data that keeps me honest, the evidence that money is the loudest reason, but not the only one. Here's the test of whether an argument is honest. Does it survive the strongest version of the other side? So let me build the other side as strongly as I can, because it deserves it. If the American birth rate were simply a pricing problem, if kids were just too expensive here, then the fix would be obvious. Make it cheaper. Subsidize childcare, guarantee parental leave, hand out cash. And we don't have to guess what that does, because other countries already ran the experiment. So let's look at their receipts. Take Finland, Nordic social democracy, near universal subsidized childcare, generous paid parental leave, basically the policy wish list. Finland's fertility rate in 2023 fell to 1.26, the lowest in its recorded history, according to Statistics Finland, lower than ours. Take South Korea, a wealthy, developed country that has poured money into this problem. Its fertility rate hit 0.72, not 2, not 1, 0.72 children per woman, the lowest in the world. And then take the hardest case of all, Hungary, which has spent something like 5% of its entire GDP on pro-natal policy, loans that get forgiven when you have kids, lifetime income tax exemptions for mothers, the works. And what did all that money buy? Its fertility rate went up briefly and then slid back down, from around 1.59 toward 1.38. Researchers looking at it concluded the incentives mostly created what's called a tempo effect. Women had their kids a little sooner, but didn't end up having more of them over a lifetime.
That pattern shows up again and again. Reviews of these policies, like the work published by the IZA World of Labor, find that baby bonuses and cash transfers mostly shift the timing of births, not the final number of children a family has. You can move when people have kids. Moving how many is a different and much harder thing. So if generous money doesn't refill the cradle, what's actually going on? The honest answer is that a lot of the decline isn't a failure at all. It's freedom, and it's progress. Around the world, the single most reliable predictor of lower fertility is women's education and women's participation in the workforce. When women can control whether and when they have children, through near universal access to contraception and family planning, many choose to have fewer later. That's not a bug in civilization. That is one of its greatest achievements. Add urbanization, where kids are a cost instead of foreign labor. Add later marriage. Add a genuine cultural shift in what people believe a good life requires. And here's a piece of the cost story that we have to be adult about, because it cuts against my own argument. Some of that $300,000 price tag is a choice. It reflects a standard of parenting. The enrichment classes, the travel sports, the tutoring, the $2,000 stroller that previous generations simply didn't buy. The Brookings number describes a middle-class American childhood, not the biological minimum for keeping a human alive. Most of the world raises children on a small fraction of it. So part of what's happening is that we didn't just make kids more expensive, we also redefined what a kid is supposed to cost and then measured ourselves against the deluxe version. And one more piece of honesty, because on this channel we don't do doom. A shrinking population is not automatically the apocalypse, and serious economists will tell you so. The economist David Weil, writing in the Journal of Economic Perspectives, points out that a smaller population isn't purely a catastrophe. Fewer workers can mean more capital and resources per worker, which can actually raise productivity and living standards per person, especially in an age of automation. Fewer kids also means less spending on schools and less strain during childhood years. I am not telling you the sky is falling. Anyone who promises you a demographic doomsday on a specific date is selling something. So let me hold both of these truths at the same time, because that's the whole point of this chapter. Money is the immediate, visceral, kitchen table reason Americans give for not having the kids they say they want, and that reason is real, and the cost stack we walked through is ironclad. But money is not the deep global cause. The deep cause is a world where people, especially women, finally have the education, the tools, and the freedom to choose, and where the price of the milestones has climbed at the same time. It's both. It is a repricing wrapped around a genuine revolution in choice. So far, cash alone doesn't rebuild birth rates. Finland, Korea, and Hungary prove that. And a lot of the decline is freedom and choice, not just cost. Which leaves us in an interesting spot. If you can't fix the whole system with a video, and if some of this is choice you'd never want to undo, then what exactly is left in your hands? What can one person actually decide on purpose instead of by default? That's the last chapter, and it's the one that's actually about you. So here's where we land, and I want to be careful because this is the one chapter where I could easily overstep, and I won't. I am not going to tell you to have kids. I am not going to tell you not to. That is the most personal decision a human being makes, and it is entirely yours. What I am going to do is the only thing this channel is actually for. Make sure that when you make that decision, you make it on purpose, with real numbers, instead of letting a sticker price make it for you by default. Because that's the real trap, not the price itself, the default. Remember that tempo effect from the last chapter? The way incentives just move the timing?
There's a personal version of that, and it's more dangerous. It's the quiet postponement. Not this year, the rent's too high. Not next year, we want to buy first. Maybe when the career settles. Each one is reasonable, and strung together without anyone ever actually deciding, they add up to a permanent answer that nobody consciously chose. A not yet repeated long enough becomes a no, and the cruelest version of that no is the one you backed into instead of picking. So let me give you a tool to interrupt the default. I call it the 1.1 test, named after that gap we opened with, the 1.1 children between the 2.7 Americans say they want and the 1.6 they actually have. The whole test is about refusing to let that gap be filled by fear instead of choice. It's 3 questions. Question 1. Is this number a menu or an invoice? Go back to that $300,000 figure. It is not a toll you must pay in full to enter. It is spread across 18 years, and it describes a specific deluxe middle-class version of childhood, inflation baked in, enrichment classes included. Most of humanity raises children on a fraction of it. So the real question is never, can I afford $300,000? It's, what is my version, and what does mine actually cost? A menu you order from, an invoice you just pay. Know which one you're actually looking at. Question 2. Which of these costs are real and which are inherited fear? The daycare bill is real. Price it in your zip code for your situation. The lost income from the child penalty is real. Plan for it. Talk about who steps back and for how long, out loud, before it happens. Those are line items you can put on a spreadsheet and problem solve. But the vague dread, the sense that you need to be perfectly, completely financially ready, the guilt the internet ladles on top, that's not a line item. That's noise. Separate the math you can plan from the shame you should ignore, because the shame is the part that quietly makes the decision for you.
Question 3. Am I deciding or am I drifting? This is the whole game. There is no wrong answer to whether you have children. There is only the difference between a choice you made and a choice that made itself while you weren't looking. If you look at your real numbers, your version, your zip code, your plan, and you decide a life without kids is the one you want, that is a completely valid, examined choice, and you should feel zero guilt about it. Consider a woman named Debbie Messler, who told the Wall Street Journal she chose to stay child-free specifically because she watched her own parents drain themselves financially for her. She looked at the real cost and made a deliberate call. That's not the tragedy, that's the goal. The tragedy is only the couple who wanted the 2.7 could have planned for some version of it and instead let a scary headline about $300,000 quietly decide for them. Let me be honest about the limits here. I can't lower your daycare bill. This one video does not change the price of a house or fix Social Security's math. The system is the system, and it's going to take a lot more than a spreadsheet to reprice a childhood in this country. But the one thing that is genuinely in your hands is whether this enormous decision gets made by design or by default, with clear eyes on the real numbers or with a knot of inherited panic in your stomach.
So run the 1.1 test. Is it a menu or an invoice? What's real and what's just fear? And am I deciding or am I drifting? That's it. That's the whole tool. Because here's the truth the lecture always misses. No generation forgot how to love. A generation just got handed a price tag and told to feel guilty for reading it. So read it carefully, honestly, on purpose, and then make your own call. Do the math deliberately. I'll see you next time. One last thing, and I mean it. I am not a financial advisor, and this is not financial advice. It's financial literacy. What you do with it is entirely up to you.